Hey guys, I'm going to just go ahead and record this for you so that you can listen to it on your own speed, which you probably will want to listen to this in like 1.25 time or maybe double time. I don't know, it's up to you. But that way you don't have to sit and read it, you can just listen. The ADHD brain, what makes your brain different? The differences in the ADHD brain. The ADHD brain and the prefrontal cortex, or the thinking brain, sometimes it's called the wise brain. The prefrontal cortex in our brains matures more slowly by about 30%. So your same age peers may be functioning at their correct age level, but you're functioning about 30% behind that. So if you think about an 18-year-old, they're functioning at about the level of a 12-year-old. And that kind of carries throughout the lifespan. We also have insufficient dopamine to get us to do the things that involve reward, particularly if it's delayed. And that involves motivation as well as time blindness. We have a decreased ability to recognize the reward and feel the pleasure associated with rewards. And this is impaired reward and pleasure pathways is where that comes from. We also have insufficient dopamine, making it difficult to filter out irrelevant stimuli and sensations. Dopamine is required to help buffer all of the stimuli that norepinephrine is amplifying, because that's norepinephrine's job, is to help us pay attention, but it does that very non-specifically. And that includes, noises, sights, smells, sounds in the environment, as well as internal feelings like your heart rate, your stomach, how this chair feels, this rock in your shoe, the tag on the back of your shirt. And in addition to all of this, we are also less able to recognize the emotions that we're feeling and regulate our own response to them. And that's emotional regulation. So ADHD and the limbic system, how ADHD affects our reptile brain. We are more sensitive to the threshold. We have a more sensitive threshold to trigger the stress response, fight, flight, or freeze. We experience more intense emotions with less moderation from the rational, wise brain. We're more influenced by the environment we're in, which makes our symptoms situational. So based on, what's happening in your life will affect how your symptoms are affecting you. We have a higher demand for glucose, we have smaller reserves of glucose, and we have a faster burn rate. We're less able to regulate energy and alertness levels, and we experience cognitive fatigue more quickly than those without ADHD. So what's the outcome of all of this? Basically, it boils down to one defining feature of ADHD, and that is that we have an interest-based nervous system. What does it mean to have an interest-based nervous system? It means that you have to hack in to the motivators of ADHD to do the things that are important, but seem to provide no reward. Because the ADHD brain cannot really achieve intrinsic motivation. That's a neurotypical concept. When people with ADHD are told to develop intrinsic motivation, doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing, it can be demoralizing because that's not how our brains work. Intrinsic motivation is not a skill. It's a developmental trait associated with a neurotypical brain that is innate and genetic. And not having intrinsic motivation is not a moral flaw, it's just a neurodevelopmental difference. So tasks that are boring and uninteresting and unrewarding to the ADHD brain require much more cognitive effort and can actually be physically painful sometimes to the person with ADHD without any kind of intervention. And often we rely on our reptile brain or, more emotional sources for motivation to get these kinds of things done. But there are other ways. So choosing a strengths focus is kind of one of the ways that we can do this. And We need to realize that throughout your life, you've probably been made keenly aware over and over again that you have challenges or weaknesses in certain areas of functioning as compared to same age peers. The adults in your life may have used shaming tactics in an attempt to motivate you to do better, because the assumption was that you could with the tools they were giving you. This may have created an inner wound of competence within your psyche, which may have triggered maladaptive coping mechanisms of shielding and soothing behaviors. And those behaviors may not line up with your true values. I have another presentation that talks specifically about this competence wound and what those shielding and soothing behaviors can look like. Anyway, this creates discord when the behaviors that you're doing in your life to shield and soothe that inner wound don't really actually line up with the values of who you want to be as a person. It creates discord within ourselves, and that amplifies and echoes the shameful language that was used on us to try to get us to do the right thing. And we now use this on ourselves. But the thing is, it was all a misunderstanding. They didn't know about the underlying neurological differences. They couldn't see things from your perspective. They assumed you shared the same perspective, the same experience of the world, and they assumed that the tools that they use and were asking you to use are universal and work for everyone. But of course, that was a faulty assumption. The tools they use are neurotypical, not universal. So with the interest-based nervous system, you are not motivated by what is important, unless it's actually important to you, but you're definitely not motivated by what's important to other people. But you can be motivated to do what's important by tapping into an acronym called PINCH. So P stands for play or prime or praise. The I stands for interest. The N in PINCH stands for novelty. The C in PINCH stands for competition. And the H stands for hurry up or urgent deadlines. So the motivators explained a little more deeply. So play, prime, or praise. If you're motivated by something that's gamified, by games or gaming in some way, can you make whatever the task is some kind of a game? Can you make a game out of it? For instance, with the laundry, getting the laundry in the laundry hamper, maybe put the laundry hamper in the corner and you've got to throw the items into the hamper, and you see how many you can actually get into the hamper from across the room, and you change your distance and your angle. That works for a lot of kids. I don't know about adults, but another example of the P for motivators would be to prime the dopamine pump. And so just get the dopamine going. And sometimes that can just be like, just get up and move. It doesn't have to be to do the task, but just get up and do something, because that just wakes up the motor cortex and opens up those channels to get the dopamine flowing back and forth. And then along with that, you can then utilize music, if music is a good motivator for you. Or you may even need to prime the pump with a little bit of glucose. So you may need to give yourself a little reward just for getting started. If you like chocolate or gum or lighting a candle, like something to create that sensation of pleasure. Also, is praise from those you love or those you respect motivating? Are you motivated to gain the praise of other people? If so, think about that as you're doing the task. Imagine that person and what they, how they would be proud of you for doing the thing that you're doing. Okay, the I, interest. Is there some aspect of the task that is even slightly interesting to you? Can you recreate something about it that is? Novelty. Can you create a new way of doing the task? Or can you do it in a new environment? Can you take your work to Starbucks for an hour, or 2 hours? And maybe that will help you get that boring paper done, or the last, part of the surveys that I asked you to do. Can you use a new pen or light a new candle or just anything to tap into novelty? Can you do things backwards? I mean, there are so many different ways to do this. Competition. This kind of lines up with, gaming things as well, but, can you compete against yourself? Can you beat the time from the last time you did this task? Like, let's say you're doing you're going to unload the dishwasher. And, going into it, you think it's going to take forever. Because of your ability to measure how much time passes, you think that it's going to take 20 minutes. And it turns out you can get it done in 3 minutes. Time yourself. Can you body double with someone and compete with each other in some way? And body doubling is really effective in a lot of other ways as well, in terms of time management and also like praise and just feeling like, you've got accountability. And then finally, hurry up and urgent deadlines. Can you create more frequent accountability checks with yourself, or have an accountability partner, like maybe somebody at work who you trust, who you've, revealed your ADHD to? Would they be willing to, check in with you at the end of the day and be like, how did it go? And you've got to work on how that's going to, that relationship and those interactions will transpire, because you also don't want to set things up to trigger your rejection sensitivity if it seems like they're being critical of you. So making sure that they're coming at it from a coaching perspective, and that they're there just to encourage you and not, say like, oh, when you didn't do it, and that kind of thing. Procrastinating and pulling things together at the last minute can really be could be very effective for a lot of people with ADHD. But if it fails, the consequences can be painful. So can you move the deadline up? Or even ask your boss, no, I need you want this project done in 3 weeks. I need you to tell me it has to be done by Friday, kind of thing. So the tools that you need to use will tap into your personal strengths and interests. And so you kind of need to sort of figure out for yourself, which tool of pinch do you resonate with most? Are you somebody who likes to spend money on new things? If so, then you are motivated by novelty. You have novelty seeking. So that is a motivator for you. Are you motivated by what interests you? Are you a curious person? Do you find yourself focusing on, researching things? And if so, then that's a motivator for you, is curiosity. What are you passionate about? What could you talk to someone about until you're blue in the face? What do you value? If you could be as authentically yourself as possible, what would that look like? And this is a really big picture question. And it may even loop in what are you a morning person? Are you not a morning person? How can you structure the day around how you actually function in your own personal rhythms and strengths? Because if all of this is different from how you're living now, then, it's pretty obvious that that's going to create a lot of friction and discord and things to fall apart. So yeah, are your choices and your lifestyle lining up with what you truly value and who you truly are and what your strengths and gifts are? So the next steps and beyond, if you haven't already, would be to complete that VIA Strengths Assessment, which you can find on page 43. And then also going further with that strengths assessment, looking at your passions and your strengths and what a real world problem is, or something that you're trying to attack or that you're interested in, and doing that Venn diagram and completing that. As you continue down this path, you will keep looking to weave your strengths and values into the pinch motivators, which are critical to all tasks, including planning, time management, emotional control, and organization. You'll look for your rhythms, and you'll weave planned rest and recharge breaks into your life, because as we go back to the beginning, where we talked about how we burn through glucose more, we have decreased reserves of glucose, and whatever cognitive tasks we do, if they are not interesting to us, they quickly drain that, and we have cognitive fatigue quicker than other people. So having recharge breaks are critical for us, and you may be doing that, but it looks to other people like you are avoiding tasks, and maybe the things that you're doing, like your body is telling you need to take a break, so you go and you lay down, or you sit on your phone and scrolling. But screens do not recharge usually. So figuring out when your body's telling you that you need a break, what to actually do to recharge, refuel the tank. And then in addition to that, you're going to start to consider if any shielding and soothing behaviors that you've developed to cope with that inner wound are maladaptive, and you'll start to look to replace them with adaptive ones that are in line with your values and strengths and that boost you up.